Well, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is out of intensive care this morning, but he remains hospitalized. And there's continued fallout surrounding the lack of transparency over his hospital stay. As you know, the Defense Secretary did not tell anybody he was in the hospital for several days. The White House said yesterday that President Biden has no plans to replace Austin, will not fire him. He continues to have, quote, full trust in the secretary. But Montana Congressman Matt Rosendale is planning to introduce articles of impeachment against Austin on the floor today, the floor of the House of Representatives. Rosendale said that Austin has, quote, violated his oath of office time and time again and has jeopardized the lives of the American people. Joining me right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, General Jack Keane, back with us. General, great to see you. Happy New Year to you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Happy New Year to you and your team.
I want to get your take on this, General, because I've heard from a number of military men, and I don't know, people are upset. OK, they're upset that we knew nothing about this hospital stay, the fact that he had to go to the ICU, that it was an emergency, an ambulance took him to the hospital, and yet he goes into the hospital, goes to the ICU, and President Biden is not told for days, 4 or 5 days. The public is not told for 5 days. What's your assessment of all of this, General?
Well, clearly, I mean, it's a breakdown in the routine protocol here for reporting when principals are either in a hospital going through a procedure, you know, have a flu, virus, COVID, anything at all that takes them away from their normal duties, you know, is routinely reported, staff to staff. That's where the breakdown here. I mean, principals don't normally make the phone call and say, I'm going into a hospital and call their bosses to do it. Austin receives routine staff-to-staff reports on all of his direct reports. Combatant commanders, his staff who are direct reports to him. If they're going on leave, like his deputy secretary, that's routinely reported staff to staff. If somebody's ill, staff to staff. That's where the breakdown here occurred. And I think, I mean, they're going to do a review of this. They know there was a serious breakdown here. And Ryder and company, who was the spokesperson for the Pentagon, admitted that yesterday. And certainly, when he went into the hospital on the 1st, the evening of New Year's, and stayed overnight, that clearly should not only have been reported staff to the White House and to other principals, but it should have been declared to the public, certainly on the 2nd of January.
Yeah.
And then on the 4th of January, you know, compounding this, it's not an excuse, but it's just a fact that his chief of staff was also ill.
That's right.
During that time frame. When she got back to work on Thursday, that is when the White House got notified by her. Mm-hmm. And so obviously someone else didn't pick it up and make those notifications. But there should have been a staff notification to the White House, staff notification to other principals, and also a public release of information about that, certainly on the 2nd of January.
I got a text yesterday from a source who says to me, as a squadron commander in the Middle East, anytime I was gone or absent, I always had to delegate my authority to the next level. And this standard practice is required in every military organization. So basically exactly what you just said. People are wondering if this is a fireable offense, but of course the president has put that to rest and said, no, I'm not firing my defense secretary. So we're all praying and hoping that he's okay. We have no information at all, General.
Yeah, well, I think the secretary likely learned a valuable lesson here, too, that clearly he's a very private person. He's entitled to his privacy, but he's also a public official. And when you have a public official, you're giving up a fair amount of your privacy. So what happens to you medically, and particularly if you're in the hospital or even going through some kind of surgical procedure, given the implications of surgical procedure, no matter how minor they are, I mean, there should be a public disclosure of that information.
Well,
and certainly they realize that, and I doubt seriously we'd ever have this kind of problem again going forward. I think they've learned a valuable lesson here themselves. One, fix the system that broke down, and two, make sure the public gets the information they need.
At a time, of course, that the country...
In a timely manner.
And at a time that the country is feeling increasingly vulnerable. I mean, we've got 2 wars. We've got aggression on the United States from our number one adversary. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is back in Israel today, General. He's having meetings with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, other Israeli officials, as the U.S. works to prevent the war in the Middle East from widening. The Iranian-backed Houthis said that one of its top commanders was killed in an Israeli airstrike in Lebanon yesterday, while Israeli Defense Forces announced that they killed another Hamas central figure in Syria. But look at how many times our troops have been attacked. In the United States, President Biden was interrupted by pro-Palestinian protesters in South Carolina yesterday. Listen to what he told them yesterday. I want to get your take on this and then ask you about all of these attacks. We're at 128 right now on U.S. forces in the Middle East. Watch this.
If you really care about the lives lost here, then you should honor the lives lost and call for a ceasefire in Palestine. Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
That's all right. I understand their passion, and I've been quietly working with the Israeli government to get them to reduce and significantly get out of Gaza, using all that I can to do that.
So, General, what's your reaction to that? I mean, he says, I'm quietly working to get the Israelis to do something. Well, why? Why are you quietly working to get the Israelis to change their position after they are responding to an unprovoked attack?
Yeah, well, I mean, he made a statement. He was trying to get them, working to get them out of Gaza. And certainly watching this very closely at the Institute for the Study of War, there's lots more to do to accomplish the mission that the Prime Minister has given their military, which is to dismantle Hamas as a military and terrorist organization and also obviously remove it as a governing body. Those are the major strategic objectives that the military is attempting to achieve here. And they've got a long way to go to do that. I think it's many more weeks and, if not that, months ahead to pursue that goal. I do think the administration has had some impact on Israeli military operation, reducing the scale of them in terms of air bombing and also the ground campaign, where they're going to do more targeted attacks, raids, so to speak, as opposed to systematic building by building, block by block. I do think if that takes place, the war will be more protracted. It'll take longer to be able to eventually defeat and then destroy Hamas as a military organization. The United States has put pressure on Israel here, and I think it would have been far better for them just to leave Israel and its military alone. Certainly they have a right to comment on this overall strategic objective, but the tactics and how they achieve that, I think, should be left to the Israelis and their military.
And again, no response to 128 attacks on our forces in the Middle East, General. We continue to watch this and wait for a response. We so appreciate your time this morning, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, great talking to you, Maria. Thank you.
And to you.